Imagine you've been brought to a courtroom, accused of crimes you haven't committed. The jury is stacked with handfuls of people testifying against you. Your friends, neighbors, and even some you may have never met before. The judge urges you to confess or face death. Any insistence of your innocence will fall on deaf ears. They've already put a label on you, and the only way to save yourself from the death penalty is to confess to what you know you haven't done. Would you do it? This is Studies in Shadow. Hello, and welcome to the third installment of Studies in Shadow. I am your host, Jack Rogers, and as always, I am joined by my amazing co-host, Noah Bazoo. Say hi, Noah.
I am so happy to be here. Hello, Jack.
Hello. So, you're probably wondering what this week's episode is going to be about. Well, judging by the intro, you might recognize the sentiment as either A, the Cold War, or B, the Salem Witch Trials.
Ooh, both are good topics to talk about.
And we are going to be talking about the Salem Witch Trials today.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Good topics to talk about.
Definitely. Can I confess something to you, Noah?
Is this the right time to do this?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Growing up,
oh no,
I thought the Salem Witch Trials happened in Salem, Oregon. And I was like, let's go visit the Salem Witch Trials.
You guys couldn't see it, but the face Jack made was very funny because it looked like he was going to cry as he said that. And that was very funny to look at because I actually thought he was going to cry.
Oh my god.
No, I mean, like, as a young kid, that would, like, make sense. Because, I mean, like, I first learned about, like, the Salem Witch Trials in 6th, 7th grade. I remember it mostly in 7th grade. And we watched, like, clips of, like, our teacher would, like, use, like, clips from, like, a teacher's website to, like, explain little things about it without being too graphic. But I never really cared where it happened when I was that age. It was, like, it happened in Salem, and I was, like, cool. I didn't really think that there was, like, I don't know, multiple Salems.
I felt really dumb when
you found
I was
out.
in high school
In
my junior year.
When you went to Salem, Oregon, you're like,
No,
what the heck?
No,
There's nothing here.
That wasn't it. No, we were reading The Crucible. And I'm like, it's crazy that this just happened like maybe like a couple hundred miles from here. And not many people in the class got it because a lot of people in that class were really stupid. But
People thought you were joking or something.
No, they didn't know or care what I was talking about.
Oh,
They probably didn't know there was
Gotcha.
a Salem, Oregon. But the teacher looked at me and was like, "What?
Mr. Rogers, please stop by after class, please."
What are you talking about?" I was like, "Salem, Oregon." She's like, "Jack, this happened in Massachusetts." I'm like, "There's a Salem in Massachusetts?"
You're like, Massachusetts is a different country.
"Oh my good, right?" Oh my goodness. So yeah,
That's
fun
funny,
stuff.
though. That's funny.
That is my confession for the day. That's not the interesting thing I was telling you about though.
Okay,
you
you were going to confess. You hadn't said anything before we started, and I was a little concerned. You looked right at me. I was like, do you want to press the pause button for a minute? Just, like, get it off your chest, dude. It's been a rough week.
Oh my
Get it
goodness.
off your chest.
No, I'm just having such a hard time.
You must be a witch.
Oh my goodness, right? You would think after reading about the Salem Witch Trials, something like that would be like, she's a witch.
You cried, you're a witch. It's a fact.
Oh my goodness.
It's a fact. You're heavier than a duck, you're a witch.
We'll get to that. It's funny because we joked about that like last week, and I think that's where we got the idea.
Foreshadowing.
To do it for this week. We'll just plant little, Easter eggs in our episodes. So, for those of you who don't know what the Salem Witch Trials are, they took place between February of 1692 and May of 1693. It's a period of 15 months, which I actually had to do on paper because I couldn't do the math in my head. And it started with two girls, Abigail Williams and Betty Paris. Betty Paris, by the way, was the daughter of the town's Reverend Paris, accusing multiple people of witchcraft. Now, if any of you have read The Crucible, you'll probably recognize these names. Mm-hmm. A lot of what happens in history is what actually happened in the Crucible.
Yeah, and like Arthur Miller wrote that a while ago, obviously. My thing is like I guess my confession about not knowing about the Salem Witch Trials is when I read The Crucible, I think I was about maybe 6 chapters in, and I thought it was like an actual historical account of what happened, and they were just like reading the journals of people and they were like using that. Yeah, but I was just like, oh dang, this is like so real, because like the teacher had been teaching us about like what is happening, the characters' names.
I mean, all the people are real.
Yeah,
all the people in the Crucible are actual people.
It's just the things that like a little bit of it has been fictionalized, but at the same time, it's like when you look at how much nonsense was in the Salem Witch Trials, it's like it wouldn't be a stretch to assume that like the book had some of it very accurate, even though it's not historically sound.
Definitely.
Which is really sad.
Yeah. So this is what I've been talking to you pretty much about all week, saying, oh, I have something really cool I'm going to bring up in the podcast.
Okay,
I
yeah.
can't tell you.
Let me tell this. Let me tell this, how frustrating this is. Jack is one of those people that is so good at making you like anticipate and want to like hear what he has to say. And he kept like poking like at me with like this idea when we were talking about, oh, let's talk about witches in the Salem Witch Trial. And after we came up with that idea, you know, every so often when I saw him when we were at school or lunch today or like moving people out, he would just say things throughout the week like, yeah, I have something really, really cool to tell you about like a family thing. I'm like,
I think I was about to tell you, and then I was like, oh, I can't tell you.
You pulled it back. I'm like, you can't do that. And then you just kept doing it. And
I kept forgetting that I'm not supposed to tell you.
He kept doing it. I'm like, well, tell me. And he's like, no, I can't. I have to save it for the podcast. I'm like, man, I want to know before they do, but it's not going to happen.
You're going to be like super disappointed by it now, maybe.
Well, no, I'm a history buff. This is this kind of stuff that I love to learn about. Not the death, but I mean, the events surrounding it is kind of interesting.
So what I wanted to talk about was a very specific individual that I think is a really cool story in the Crucible and just in history in general. Do you remember the character Rebecca Town or Rebecca Nurse?
Uh-huh.
So
Rebecca Nurse specifically.
Yeah, so she went by Town, I believe was her maiden name.
Okay.
And then Nurse was when she married Philip Nurse.
Philip Nurse, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she had 8 children in 1692 when she was accused of witchcraft.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And this is what actually happened. This isn't the Crucible story.
Yeah, this is fact.
So she was accused specifically of killing several children, babies, with her spirit.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But the thing is, Rebecca, had so many people in the town who loved her because she was so pious and upright. A very outstanding member of the community. People literally signed a petition of her innocence saying, this is insane. These claims made against, Goodwife Nurse? Yeah. Made against Goody Nurse are just absolute
like nonsense.
Bull crap.
Yeah.
And,
jeez.
Yeah, I think it was signed by 37 prominent members of the community for this judge to look at.
Wow.
She was 71, by the way.
Oh, wow, that's old for back then. Holy cow.
So
that's old for now.
You probably found this in your research about the Salem Witch Trials, but
hit me with it.
In court, this would never pass today, by the way, they had something called spectral evidence.
Yup.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And essentially what that was is you could, without any physical evidence whatsoever, claim that this person came to you in a dream or in a vision and did something to you, and then that passes in court as actual evidence.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if that were the case today? Your girlfriend comes to you like, I had a dream that you cheated on me, and then she just drops you. It's like, that was it. Or have you ever had somebody mad at you because of what you did in a dream?
No, I've had people who are like, I mean, I'm this kind of person too, where like, I think through every situation of what it could possibly be like, and sometimes I get frustrated at something that somebody didn't do or didn't do yet.
Yeah.
But I would never, accuse them.
No, I know, but has somebody had a dream about you and gotten mad at something that you did in their dream?
Oh, yeah. There's been a few times people are like, you hit me with a car full of
Now imagine if that passed in a court of law and you got charged for manslaughter for hitting somebody with a car in your dream.
Okay.
No, that would pass in 1692.
God bless America.
So I looked up the definition of spectral evidence, and apparently this is on like a law website. Because it used to be passed in court of law. It was spectral evidence. Spectral evidence refers to a witness testimony that the accused person's spirit or spectral shape appeared to him/her witness in a dream at the time the accused person's physical body was at another location.
What?
Literally, you're somewhere else and you're accused. Like, they know you're somewhere else, but you're being accused of something because of a freaking dream. It was accepted in the courts during the Salem Witch Trials. So not only would people claim that they had dreams about, this witch coming to them and being of the devil, but they would have these, you probably read about this too, or saw it in The Crucible, these fits in court.
Oh, yeah, the spazzes they would go into?
Yeah, the spazzes would be like, oh, this person is attacking me. Yeah, that was happening.
Oh, my gosh.
That was happening to Rebecca Town, nurse, during this entire trial. And it was really freaking people out.
Yeah, I mean, it would freak most people out, I
So
feel like.
she was super old and kind of deaf. People apparently looked at her as an invalid, which I don't know why. But she said, quote, I am innocent as the child unborn, but surely what sin hath God found out in me, unrepented of, that he should lay such an affliction on me in my old age. She said that during her trial. Fun fact, she was eventually found not guilty.
Huh.
You want to know what happened next?
Prison?
More spectral evidence in court. And the jury was so overwhelmed that they're like, we're going to go deliberate again. And they came back with a guilty verdict.
My gosh.
Yep. And so she was hanged at the age of 71, buried in a shallow grave near the execution site, since accused witches were not even fit for Christian burials. She was excommunicated, obviously, but her family, who were super cool, they dug her up after dark and buried her properly on their own land. They eventually petitioned for the removal of Reverend Paris, who I mentioned earlier.
Of course, yeah.
Due to his involvement in her death. He was actually eventually removed 5 years later in 1697. And what kind of makes me the most mad is that her accuser, Anne Putnam Jr., confessed in 1706 that Satan had deceived her and that Rebecca and her accused sisters, because Rebecca's sisters were also accused of being witches,
Yeah.
that they were actually innocent.
Imagine being the family and hearing that so much later.
Oh, they forgave her. But they didn't forgive Reverend Paris.
They're better than me, then.
And in 1712, the Salem Town Church actually revoked Rebecca's excommunication in 1712.
Well, that's nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
You want to know something cool?
Yeah.
You're looking at her 10th great-grandson.
What?
I'm a direct descendant of Rebecca Nurse. I can show you this.
That's actually sick.
I can show you this on my family search thing. It's a direct line.
We didn't need a person to call in today to share a story. We got the family right here.
So as soon as I posted on Facebook from our Studies in Shadow page that I was doing this, I kind of knew that I was related to somebody who was accused in the Salem trials, but my dad, he knew this as well, and he actually sent me, he's like, oh, by the way, she's your 10th great-grandmother.
Wow.
Here's the email. Here's the family tree. It's a direct descendant, and it'll only go down to my dad.
Oh, yeah, of course, though.
But obviously, in my family search app, it goes down to me. She's my 10th
Jeez.
great-grandmother.
Goes all the way back.
Direct descendant.
You got Rebecca Town.
Isn't that neat?
Samuel Nurse, Francis Nurse, Mary Smith, Rebecca Nurse. Yeah.
You want to know something else that's funny?
Yes, please.
Is our family friend, her ancestor is the one who accused our ancestor.
Time for revenge. I'm just kidding.
Right.
I was gonna say, like, I don't know if this is like the same story of your ancestor, but like in my reading, like just thinking about like the ridiculousness of like being accused, like, there was like a story I was reading about where it was talking about how like they had a woman presented before the courts, and all the girls were in there, I forget their names, but the girls who were like the accusers, obviously, and they were saying how she's a witch, the devil speaks to her in the night, she comes to us, and this woman was like a stout Christian, and she was very, very proud of being a lover of the Lord and everything like that. Anyway, she stands there and the judge asks her to recite all the 10 Commandments. And I know in the Crucible they make a joke about this
With John Proctor.
With John Proctor, because he misses "Don't commit adultery." But the reason they use that is because it actually happened, and a real person was asked. A woman was asked. I cannot remember her name. I don't think not to be rude, but I don't think she was of like incredible relevance to like, she was just one of the 20 people who happened, or one of the 200 people who happened to be accused of it. Yeah, and she was one of the ones that died. Because they asked her, he said, "Can you recite the 10 Commandments?" And she did it flawlessly. Didn't miss one. And, I mean, the whole room is packed and stuff like that. And I imagine everyone would be, like, nodding their heads. And apparently what it sounds like is that the jury was very, very, like, in favor of this woman. Like, yeah, like, okay, that's fine. And then one of the girls has a fit. And starts freaking out and starts, like, screaming, saying the devil is in her ear telling her the answers. And then the next day they hang her.
Oh, my goodness.
So it's like, you can't even be right. Like... If you get it right, you're cheating.
Yeah.
So you're dead.
Right. And it's like that part in the Bible where, for those of you who don't know the Bible, that's okay. There's the part where Jesus in the New Testament, he's casting out evil spirits.
Yeah, demons, yeah.
And somebody's like, he is using the power of the devil to cast out spirits.
Yeah.
And he's like, a house divided against itself cannot stand.
Yeah.
That's where that quote originally comes from.
Yeah, of course.
He's like, how can I use the power of the devil to cast out devils?
To fight the devil, yeah.
Right.
It's like when people say fight fire with fire, like it makes sense when you say it, but when you think about it, like practically, it doesn't make sense. You just make it way worse.
Right.
So I mean, like in this way, like with regards to like what Jesus said and in the Salem Witch Trials, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's just stupid, is what it is.
Yeah, it was mass hysteria at its finest.
Absolutely.
At its most prime, just raw
stupidity.
Yes, pretty much. So yeah, that's my cool thing that I've wanted to tell you. Oh, I'm also actually related to a judge who a year later, when somebody else was accused, he ruled in her favor, and she got off. He exonerated her.
Nice.
Yeah, so she was spared, which was cool.
Huh.
So let's see.
Do you wonder if that's some of the reasons? Maybe I don't know if it's like a bloodline thing, but that you've had like experiences in your life?
Dude, I don't know. When I heard that I was a direct descendant of an accused witch, I was like, maybe she was a witch. And I was like, nah, she can be a witch. But if she actually was a witch, and it's like, oh, I'm the 10th I'm a direct descendant of a witch. I have witch blood in me.
Yeah, I'm like, is that why you saw Horridge? Or like
maybe, I don't know.
Is it just something that you can see that nobody else can?
Not that many things have happened to me in my life, though. I feel like if I actually had, witch warlock blood in me, I feel like more things would happen.
Your letter's coming. Hagrid's about to bring it in right now.
Oh my goodness.
I can hear the door rattling.
That's the really loud concert outside.
You're a wizard, Jack.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're going to...
I'm a what?
You're going to Hogwarts.
Hogwarts, right. Goodness, I just got that joke now because now I'm a witch wizard. Get it? I understand.
Thanks for appreciating my joke. I tried so hard. I was like, I should make a Harry Potter joke here.
So dumb.
And
I'm so dumb.
Sorry, viewers.
Viewers,
I'll try, bro.
It's a podcast.
Just let's just edit this. And
Should
keep
we
going.
just start over?
No, no. Anyway, at least we got a laugh out of it.
Oh,
anyway,
my goodness.
I was just like thinking just now as well. Like one of the things that I found this like these journal entries from people who were there in like
this crap be crazy, man.
No, it actually like one of the people who talks is just like, this is madness, but I go along with it because I fear for my life and the life of my family, which is like but it's just like, it was funny. Come on, dude.
So unexpected.
Bro, I didn't even know it was happening. I just was like, I just made a pun there.
Oh, I'm sorry for my horrendous laugh.
He was just so freaked out that of course he went along with it. And you got to imagine that pretty much everyone else who was there in town in some way thought it was nonsense at one point. Like, I mean, they didn't really see any evidence. There's never any evidence. It's this person, like you said, came to me in a dream, or this person cast a spell, or this person has devils speaking to them. Okay, like... back then, maybe that flies, obviously, but, like, now we have something called the Bill of Rights, where you have, like, the Fifth. You can plead the Fifth and be like, I don't want to testify against myself, or I don't want to have to incarcerate or do anything that could, testify against me or anything like that, things like that. But people just, they didn't have that back then, and it's just so unfortunate that they didn't, because I mean, I'm just looking through a bunch of excerpts that I pulled from it, and it's just talking about people, like this woman talks about, like, you know, it's early morning, and I'm like paraphrasing, obviously, early morning, we attended the hanging of such and such, such and such, such and such and such and such.
That's a strange name.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of people's names. Many tears were shed by the families of those who were being hung, blah, 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 blah. You move on to here. No one spoke up, save the families, after which they were escorted away by officers. So it's like, even though the families are like hysterical and like being like, please, please don't do this, they're being like pushed away, like you can't even see this. And it's like, man, like it's just a bad stain on like American history.
Yeah, it's super rough.
It makes me kind of like sick to my stomach to read about it. And like, it's one of them just says like how this woman was being dragged up to this place where she was going to be executed, and she was screaming and like crying to God for help. And I mean, I can't imagine. I don't want to imagine. I can't imagine what it would sound like. But just like this woman who obviously is innocent, right? Pleading to God. And then it says the men struck her, like hit her on the way up, and were like, don't plead to God because he's not listening to you. Like, how do you, how would you know what I'm saying? How would you feel about that? Because we're both religious people. Like, how would you feel if like you're about to be killed for a reason that is complete bogus, and then before they do it, they're hitting you saying like, oh yeah, God doesn't care, he's gonna damn you.
Hashtag Jesus.
Yeah, like seriously, like
literally what happened to Jesus.
It's so stupid, and it just makes my heart hurt, because like the last thing they're thinking before they die is like, I'm going to hell, because they really think that like maybe they're doing something wrong.
Not Rebecca Nurse. She was like, I am innocent. I know I am. So they probably knew they weren't going to hell because they knew they weren't witches.
I hope so.
But they were just really upset that they were being killed.
Well, like back then, like the reason like I say that is I assume it's like the excommunication thing. Because like back then, being excommunicated was the worst thing that could happen to you. Mm-hmm. Because if you got excommunicated, you didn't have any ties with God anymore. That is like how the Catholics and a bunch of other like Christians did their thing. I mean, you got to think back in like Martin Luther days when he was like, you know, making the Lutheranism and stuff like that. Back then, when you would like get excommunicated, it was a death sentence basically. Yeah. Because you were gone, and so nobody cared anymore, and they didn't have to take care of you. They didn't have to do all these different things. It was a dark time back then, and like that time period, all around the world, just, you know, it's just unfortunate that it had to happen that way.
Yeah. You know what makes my stomach hurt more than spectral evidence and all this stuff?
I don't know.
The other tests of being a witch. Did you look at those?
A couple of them. I thought they were fake, honestly.
Nope.
I know that a bunch of them are real, but it really pissed me off.
So we brought up, you know, lighter than a duck, whatever. An actual test was the swimming test. Mm-hmm. Not like, swim 3 laps, and if you make it, you're a witch.
I could do that.
No, you're a witch. That's how it goes.
So?
Legally, I can kill you now. In 1692. Not now.
Say, you got a time machine you ain't telling me, you got a TARDIS you ain't telling me about?
I'm going to take you back to 1692, bring you into court, be like, tell them what you told me. He can swim 3 laps.
Kill him.
Okay, but an actual test would be to bind the suspect and lower them into the water. If they float, they're a witch. It's literally that scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
It is, yeah.
And if they don't float, meaning sometimes they would drown, they're innocent. But they often had a rope tied around their waist, so if they sunk like a rock, like they usually would, they could pull them out. But it wasn't uncommon for people to just straight up die.
You'd think that the moment they hit the water and they were underwater for like 10 seconds, they'd pull them up.
You know what I can imagine? Them going under the water and be like, no, give it a minute. I bet they're faking it. The devil's making them heavier. 3 minutes go by. Should we pull them out? No, wait. Give it another minute.
Yeah.
Don't you think? No! This is important. This is for our beliefs.
Honestly, I think the people who were like the accusers and the ones who let it happen are the ones who, like, if anything, were like inspired by the devil. I mean,
that's what
it is.
That's what that one chick Anne said when she confessed. She's like, "Oh yeah, Satan.
Yeah,
Satan deceived me."
Absolutely.
Like, no doy. You got a bunch of innocent people killed.
Yeah.
Even if you don't believe in the devil, it's a pretty crappy thing to do.
Yeah, it's just so stupid that people would let it happen.
All right, brace yourselves. This one's gross. So there's something called a witch cake.
Oh, yeah.
Did you read about this one?
Yeah.
So,
Tell them.
it's where they would make a cake out of ash, rye meal flour, or whatever, and then a sample of the accused's urine. They would make it into a cake and then feed it to a dog, because dogs apparently had a very like crucial role to the devil and witches.
Well, I mean, like, think
They're
about
like a familiar, whatever that was.
Think of like all the like evidence of like in movies and books and all like history. Whenever something goes bump, a dog goes nuts. If you see like those movies where like a ghost in the room, the dog starts freaking out. And so like that's not just like a movie thing. Like that's an actual thing. Like dogs have like that sense. I don't know if they can see anything or they just know what's going on around, like you were saying. But like animals just kind of have that sense. That's where they always know when like a disaster is going to happen.
Yeah, they always like sit down.
They're just in touch with like the other side.
And so they would feed it to this dog, and if the dog reacted badly or in some sort of it behaved in a certain way, congratulations, you found a witch.
If the dog took a bite of it, you're a witch. If it didn't, you're a witch.
No, if it ate it and reacted. So you brought up this one earlier. Have them read scriptures or the Lord's Prayer. If they stutter once, you've found a witch. Congratulations.
Man, I can't even get through the first verse of Genesis without stuttering sometimes. Because it happens. Like, I'm just like, in the beginning, there was...
I stutter when I'm not reading something. The thoughts are in my head, and I'm struggling
It's
to
hard
say
to
them.
convey them out loud.
Yeah. So that one's fun. Oh, this one's...
You're making me want to go punch people back in 1692.
They're all dead now, don't worry.
It doesn't matter. I can go back. Get that TARDIS.
Oh, gosh. Here's another one. Strip them and look for odd marks that would signify a pact with the devil.
Oh,
If you found one, you found a witch. Extra nipples are also accepted in this case. Because they're like, it's the devil's teat. That's what they called it.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And what if you can't find any marks?
They're a witch.
No. Poke them with a needle until you find a spot that doesn't hurt. That's a hidden mark.
What?
Because apparently these marks were insensitive.
I didn't read this. What?
Yeah, these marks were insensitive to pain, so they would just prick at these marks. Like, if they found like a mole, and they'd like prick it, and be like, "Did you feel that?" Nope. We found a witch.
Bro, I'm toast. I have like a mole on my neck, on my back, and on my arm. I'm toast.
You're done, man.
It's over for me.
So, make sure you find a spot that doesn't hurt. When you found one, you found a witch. Make the person admit they're a witch by saying, I am a witch. If I am a witch, then I demand the devil to leave this afflicted. All that this would rely on is the afflicted's acting skills and acting not as crazy. And then they'd be like, oh, you're a witch because you were able to cast the devil out of the afflicted.
Okay, I'm going to go on with this as well. This is something I read about this as well. It's like 200 people were accused.
Yeah.
That is like the rough estimate or the guess of how many people were done. 20 people were killed because of it. The funny thing is, no one who confessed to be a witch was killed.
Yeah, no.
They were just put in jail.
Yeah.
Why? That's like the thing that doesn't make sense to me is like they had, I think from what I read, I don't know how accurate this was, 15 women confessed to being a witch. Like outrightly were like, yes, I'm a witch.
Just to save their neck.
Just to save their neck. But they weren't killed. You think the people of Salem would have like had like the smallest inkling of, oh, look, we've got a live one. Let's deal with this. No, let's just throw her in prison. And those people, I think the majority of those women got out eventually.
Yeah.
Because everything cooled off. Mm-hmm. But, you know, in that case, like if you knew that, everyone should have just been like, yeah, we're witches.
Yeah, so the thing is, when you go into that situation,
oh my goodness,
you're already guilty. They've already put a label on you. Like I said in the beginning, in the cold open, they've already put a label on you, and now they're just deciding what to do with you. And if you don't confess, it means you're lying, and you deserve to be punished by death. Yep. And if you're telling the truth, you deserve a chance. It is so bass-ackwards. Because it apparently innocent until proven guilty was not a thing back then. Oh, and even if you were proven innocent, all somebody would have to do is fake a demonic seizure in the audience and they'd be like, so much, oh no.
What would have happened if, let's say, like they accused you, right?
Yeah.
And you're up there and you're giving all the evidence that you're not a witch or a warlock or whatever you are, and one of the girls starts freaking out, and then I start freaking out saying the girl's a witch. What happens? You know what I mean? Like, she has a panic.
Shoot, man. Go back in time.
That's
and
a
find
serious
out.
thing that I was thinking about as I was reading this. I was like, okay.
That's a fun hypothetical.
Yeah, really? Because the girl's having a fit, and it's like, the devil's speaking, and then I all of a sudden, like, I'm like, oh, and like start having a panic attack. I'm like, the devil is possessing her to tell them. Like, are they going to be like, no, it's him. He's the devil too.
At that point, the judge is just like looking back and forth, like,
Kill them all.
case dismissed. Oh no.
Take them all to the
Or
water.
yeah, kill them all.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And then somebody points their fingers at you. No, he's lying. No, he's lying. It'd be bad.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. Giles Corey in The
yeah,
Crucible is
yeah,
actually
yeah.
killed this way. And I think in real life too. Put the accused under heavy boulders and make
Yep.
them confess.
Yep.
If they confess, you've found a witch. If
Leave
they
them.
don't, well, they die.
Either way, you just leave them.
That's it.
I'm not laughing at the pain. I'm laughing at the stupidity.
So-
I'm sorry.
other than rock crushings, executions included hangings, of course.
Yeah.
And burning at the stake.
It's classics.
Which is the kind of the most well-known one. Burn the witch at the stake. Were there any other tests that you found for being a witch, or did I cover a lot of them?
You covered a lot of them. There were a bunch of things that like happened in other countries.
Oh, okay.
That like I noticed about like other witch hunts that were happening. And the funny thing is like it was happening kind of around the same time. Like different things in different places. I say around the same time because like one of them was like in Denmark, the burning of witches, especially burning. Like that was their big thing they did. Was a huge thing that was increasing from like their the Reformation of 1536 is what I was reading about. And they encouraged this practice so much, in fact, that like, anybody, even if they weren't convicted of witchcraft, like was burned. So people who weren't witches were burned, just like because it became such a popular way to kill people. And like, there's this place called
Judge is like, I'm bored.
yeah, let's
burn somebody
start a
today.
fire. Yeah, and it says there's this district called Finnmark, and it's in northern Norway, and they had these severe witch trials that like pretty much in terms of numbers put the Salem Witch Trials to shame, and it went from 1601 to 1699.
Oh my gosh!
That's almost 100 years. And it says, like, from what I was reading, there's estimates that anywhere from, like, 500 to, like, over a number of thousand were killed from, like, that way. And
How have I never heard of this?
it doesn't go into the insane... I think the reason we get, like, the Salem Witch Trials...
It's in America.
It's in America, yeah,
Right.
but the fact is it was only, like, a year. And so much nonsense happened in a year. This is, like, a whole century.
An era.
Yeah, and this, a whole generation or two or three happens in this time span, and the people, as it talks about, it even says the reason you might not be familiar with this is the fact that all of it happened over such a spread out amount of time that it never really felt like it was the biggest deal. But when you look back at it, it's just absolute chaos, and that's just what they believed, and it's like, man, what a way to go.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hanging is brutal, but I don't know if I could, like, if I had to choose my way of death, like, I would never choose to be burned alive.
Yeah.
I just, not to be demented or anything, but seriously, like, no. That is
Yeah.
just so painful.
This last week or two, I saw Midsummer.
Yeah, I did not go with you for
I'm
that.
so glad you didn't. I had to cover my eyes for most of that movie. So this is kind of taking a tangent, but I swear it'll come back to the point. Burning alive. So Midsummer, don't go see it if you don't like really, really graphic stuff. Kind of a bland plot. I mean, it's pretty high stakes most of the time. People are
Yeah.
just dying left and right.
I mean, I've watched, like,
But it kind of plateaus and fizzles out at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, but it doesn't really fizzle out.
it just ends kind of.
Well, no, I'd say it doesn't fizzle out because it ends with people being burned alive.
Yeah.
And it's so messed up because they sacrifice
boyfriend,
themselves.
yeah.
Like, I will be a sacrifice to the
The pagan gods.
What are they? I think they're in like Finland or
No, yeah, they're in Finland.
I can't remember. Yeah, but they're just this Finnish cult.
Or Swedish. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, probably Swedish. And they're like, I will give myself. And so they sit in this big wooden tent looking thing,
It's a big, like, yeah.
wooden pyramid. And the guy comes in, he's like, take from the yew tree and feel no pain. So they give them like this sap. And I'm like, oh, I guess that's nice of them to give them
Like a numbing agent.
a
or something.
numbing agent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was bullcrap. Because you watch them burn. Like, he's sitting there kind of staring at his friend like, we are giving ourselves over. And then you see the fire catch, and he's like, "Ah, ah," and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's a brutal movie, and also, so it had an okay beginning. Like, I'm like, oh man, I feel bad for this girl. And then it got really shocking at one point because you see people die for the first time.
Yep.
And then it gets really weird, and then it gets weird on a really pornographic level, and that's the part where I literally had to cover my eyes and close my ears. Cover my ears and my eyes.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, I do not want to look at...
People having sex.
Yeah, and
Literally.
Other than that, like over a dozen just naked chicks on screen encouraging these two people to have sex. I'm like, I do not like that. I regret going and seeing that movie.
Yeah.
This is why our church tells us not to go see rated R movies, or just to be careful what media we consume.
Yeah, it never gives us orders. It's just
Yeah,
like,
they don't say don't go see rated R.
They're just
They're
like, hey, you might not want to. That's the perfect reason why. Because like I wanted to go see that with you, and I talked to my wife about it, and we read some more reviews. And I'm not hating on you or anything, but I read more reviews about it. Watched some clips, not of anything nasty, but like people were talking about it, and I basically got the whole movie from just like watching 4 or 5 clips, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to go watch this.
I should have gotten the clue when Ari Aster, the director and writer, said, it's the Wizard of Oz for perverts. I'm like, maybe it's just like perverted for violence. And then I go see it. I'm like, no, this is overtly sexual. But anyway, yeah, Burning Alive. It looked terrible.
Yeah.
There was another guy in the movie who they give, not a numbing agent, but a paralyzing agent. And they sew him up in a bear suit and then burn him alive.
I saw that, yeah.
So he can't move or scream or anything. And he's just burning alive.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. I don't want to be burnt alive or drowned.
Nope.
I think I'd rather be hanged. That is not an invitation to any of our listeners to come find me and hang me. Please don't do that. I want to live.
We have more podcasts to make.
If you enjoy the podcast, please don't kill us. And if you don't enjoy the podcast, this is not an invitation to come kill us.
We shouldn't have to make that statement, but we have to now.
Right? I'm so terrified these days of just wackos. If there are any wackos listening, no offense.
Just shamelessly plug that in there, like, hey, by the way. So
don't kill us. That's not nice.
Do you know? Maybe this isn't the. I don't know how much longer we're going to do this. Do you know how it all ended? The Salem Witch Trials, like what actually made it end?
No, I actually don't.
It's very, very stupid. Very stupid. So, all this stuff was happening, like you said, for 18 months, and I want to get the quote right just to make sure. So I'm pulling it up right now. Oh, side note. The book is called The Crucible, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of interesting.
By Arthur Miller.
Yeah. Do you know what a crucible is?
It's a trial by fire, isn't it? Or no, a crucible is... I'm thinking of Holocaust. That's trial by fire.
Oh, wow. Okay.
A crucible is where they heat metal up.
It's a giant container that you have in like smelteries and factories, and you use it for heating substances at such high temperatures.
Oh, that's what they do gold in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To burn out all the impurities.
Yeah, that's like when you see like in movies or in real life at a factory, and you see those giant, like whether they're stone or other things, vats, and it looks like they're pouring lava out. Mm-hmm. That's a crucible, that thing, and it's called a crucible, and it's the term is often used to describe high pressure and high heat situations. So you can't really tell me that time period was not a high pressure, high heat situation.
I would just leave.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea, but just like it's a very kind of poetic name. Yeah. So he did it really well to name it that in terms of getting the idea. Anyway, it's a very abrupt ending to the Salem Witch Trials. It didn't like pit her out; it just kind of stopped. And what happened was the trials came to an end when the governor of Massachusetts' wife was accused of witchcraft. And
the governor's like, that's enough.
No, yeah, he literally said, that's enough, we're done, and he ordered the end of the trials.
All right.
After his wife had been accused.
He's like, this has gotten a little too personal. Maybe I should step in now.
Only after 200 people.
You gotta be wondering what he was thinking. He's just like, to let them do their thing.
What if he didn't know? I mean, this is back in the day when like you had like horses and carriages and you had to send people like runners to go places. I don't know where Salem is in relation to where the capital was at that time or where the governor would have been.
Yeah.
Like he could have been 3 hours away by car driving, even farther, like 3 days away by walking. He might not have even known. I mean, the Salem Witch Trials were a very like isolated incident in Salem.
Suddenly he just gets a letter. It's like, what is this? Your wife is a what is this? What? And sends a courier, and they come back like, they've been accusing people for the last year of witchcraft and just burning them at the stake and whatnot. And he's like, just what?
Stuff like that happened.
No.
Stuff
You don't
like
even
that,
know
yeah.
my wife.
Stuff like that happened with, I mean, not even witchcraft, but just dumb things. Like leaders would not hear about things happening in settlements they were in charge of because this distance is too much, and all of a sudden things have gone crazy.
Phones weren't a thing.
Yeah. But just imagine that, like, all of a sudden you're just at your home and they get a letter like, oh, your wife's a witch. You're like, who are these people?
What?
And they want to come burn your wife.
What is this dinky freaking town, Salem?
Yeah.
By the way, they've renamed the town to Danvers.
Yeah.
Apparently Salem
Yeah.
is not that good of a name. Unless you're Oregon.
Big up Oregon. I don't know what to say there. I was
Like, you know what? We should name this town Salem.
So you want to know something else that's really interesting about it?
Absolutely.
What really happened?
What really happened?
I'll tell you.
Okay, tell me.
I'll tell you.
Tell me.
You just gotta. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Tell me!
If witchcraft wasn't happening in Salem, and if you've been listening, we don't believe it did. We think it was all just a bunch of nonsense.
Mass hysteria.
Exactly. What actually caused the girls to have fits or people to do those things? What do you think? Did you read about this?
Lots of drama and jealousy. Right?
Yeah, but
Well, I mean, in the Crucible,
there's
what
something
happens
specific, and it's actually a lot more scientific than you think.
is everything's a lot more scientific than I think. I'm stupid, Noah.
No, you're not. Okay. There are lots of answers. But
Great.
there's lots of answers that could make sense.
Yeah.
But the one that like scholars and scientists and historians have like thought of the most and that makes the most sense is that they're suffering from a natural medicinal affliction. Meaning the community is,
Were they smoking weed?
not necessarily
I'm
yet.
kidding.
This community is already burdened with like hardships and all kinds of other things that they're going through. I mean, it's a tiny town. Lots of like tough times were happening.
Oh my gosh, shrooms.
Almost. They overreacted. Here's a more disturbing thing that they said, though.
Oh, more disturbing. Great.
Salem suffered from ergot poisoning. E-R-G-O-T.
Ergo.
Ergo poisoning. E-R-G-O-T.
I've heard that word used in sentences like ergo this.
Yeah. I don't know if that's you said.
not
Is
as
it
a
is it
noun.
ergot or it's E-R-G-O-T? I'm gonna say ergo. Ergo.
I thought it would be like ergo.
I'll say ergo. We'll say ergo.
Like for example.
Yeah. It's ergo or ergot poisoning. So the people of Salem, and you mentioned this talking about rye bread earlier.
Yeah.
That was a big staple of their diet. Rye bread was a huge thing for them. This was like what they could grow out there because it's such a swampy area with really humid, swampy conditions. And that was like a thing that happened year round for them. And rye can foster a fungus called ergo or ergot. Oh. Ergot produces hallucinations, convulsive fits, and sometimes death. And guess what modern day substance gets its start from ergo?
LSD.
LSD. Ooh. They have to, like, there's lots of ways to get it now, but when they first started making it, and even now, like the purest LSD, they start, like, manufacturing it from ergo because it has these effects. And the funny thing is, as well, is the fact that the summer of 1692 was a dry one. Which would have made sense as to why it was like that.
Oh my gosh, I just thought of something. Remember last week when we were talking about shadow people and I said methamphetamine addicts often see shadow people? Uh-huh. What if it was the same thing with LSD? These spirits that they were claiming to see were just them tripping. And
they are tripping.
Yeah, I know. They were tripping, but that piece just came together in my mind. I thought that's cool.
Yeah, but just think of the fact that, like, these people, like, when you're on meth, like, you kind of know that you're on meth.
Right.
And so there's, like, I don't know if there's, like, better explanations than that. But, like, for this, like, ergo, ergot, whatever you want to call it, the fact was, like, they probably didn't know they were on it. Like, this is back in the day when, like, they're just eating bread. They don't really realize. I mean, if they see mold, they're like, okay, that's bad. But, like, this stuff is, like, not very visible. Like, you don't really see it. It just kind of grows in it. Like, in the gluten, like, fibers and stuff like that.
That's why people are gluten-free.
No, it's because they have hallucinations.
That's why your wife doesn't eat gluten, so she doesn't want to get high.
But seriously, though, like, think about that. Everyone in town is tripping, or if they're not tripping yet, they're like starting to get like weird like hallucinations. Combine that with the fact that they're going through like one of the driest summers they've ever had. Everyone's in a small town going through hard things. There's been drought. There's been tough like harvest and stuff like that, and all other drama that you can think of in that time period.
Yeah.
And then someone's just like, "There's witchcraft." Of course you're going to believe that.
Yeah.
That's like back in the day, like the Greeks were like, "Oh, look, it's a storm. Zeus must be ticked." Everything had a reason. There's always a reason, and everybody, you know this.
Now imagine that on LSD.
Yeah, seriously. It's not God because we don't believe in other gods. Blah, blah, blah. That's what the Christians would say, obviously. So it must be a witch, and they're all tripping, so they believe it. I don't know if the tripping was that serious though, but it it doesn't take very long for Ergo to fester as well.
You know what this actually reminds me of? This is a non-fiction. This is a fictional example.
No.
Do you know Butcher's Creek from Red Dead Redemption 2? Have you
Yeah.
done those missions?
Yeah.
So it's just this game takes place in Wild West, and you go to this town where everybody's super superstitious, and a lot of them have deformities. Come to find out, all their insanity and deformities are coming from their water being poisoned, and then just tripping out and seeing spirits. So that's what that reminded me of. That's crazy.
That's very interesting, huh? But yeah, like I was just reading that, and you know, the fact that it was like poisoning, like it kind of, if that is the reason, and that there's a lot of evidence from what I've read that supports this from like you know people who have very very good reasons to say these things. I'm like, man, like at the same time, like it hurts me to be like, man, like I can't be mad at these people because people do dumb things under the influence of alcohol or under the influence of drugs. It just happens, and it's unfortunate. But I mean, you didn't know. You just eat your food like normal. You carry on with your day, and it just so happens that it's making your brain totally wire out.
Jeez.
So
that's
it's
rough.
like, yeah, exactly. Because like at the same time, like I want to say it's your fault. You're stupid. You shouldn't have done it in the first place.
Idiot.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, how could you have known?
Yeah.
And you had like it was forces beyond your control because you just didn't know it existed. So to that, it's kind of like, man.
Mass hysteria fueled by drugs. Great combo.
It is a terrible combo. Oh my god.
Sorry, I was being sarcastic.
No, I was like, no.
So, you want to know what the cherry on top for all of this is?
Please.
Is that history repeats itself.
No.
That's why Arthur Miller wrote The Crucible. Because that was the Cold War at the time when he wrote it.
Oh, yeah.
And the same thing was being done with suspicion
Red Scare.
of dirty commies.
Yeah.
Communists.
Only good commie is a dead one. I'm quoting people back from the 90s.
I know. I'm like, oh, geez, disclaimer. If you're a communist, please don't be offended.
I know you can be offended by me, not Jack.
But yeah, so it was pretty much the same thought process. We suspect you of being a commie. Confess or be punished.
You wore red underwear, you must be
It's like,
dirty.
do I have any say in this? No. Unless you want to confess, and then you do have a say in this.
Except they didn't let you go, they killed you. Or they put you in the gulag. Wait, no, that's in Russia. They put
Russian.
you in Guantanamo.
Did they really put them in Guantanamo? Do we know that?
I don't know.
Okay,
I'm
we're just
assuming
saying
they're putting in there.
Disclaimer: we do not know everything. We often make hypotheticals or silly situations. Not that Guantanamo is a silly situation. Why am I putting so many disclaimers in this? I feel like I'm going to be offending everyone.
Because I'm broadcasting with you, and I just don't care.
It's because I'm from Washington State and I don't want to offend everyone.
And I'm from Missouri. I don't care.
It's a good combo. We balance each other out nicely.
Yeah, but no, that's brutal. And now, like, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
The Cold War.
that's why he wrote it.
And now
Arthur Miller.
I can totally see it in terms of like the comparison he was making. And obviously it was like a historical fiction novel, whereas like we've already said, most of it like is written as a fiction, but at the same time it wouldn't be a surprise if all of it had really happened. But man, like the Cold War, seriously, like I mean, most of our parents were alive during that time. I mean, maybe some of us were listening during that time, but I don't know. It's tough to think about stuff like that.
Yeah. So, what are you whispering to me now?
There's that poem that I have.
Oh, right, the poem. I forgot.
But I'm gonna save it for the end.
Yeah. No, okay. I handed Noah the ending notes that we usually do at the end of things, and he's like mouthing something. I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying.
I'm
He's
like, I don't want to speak
the
over
poem.
the camera. Yeah, no.
It's okay. We can be candid. Yeah. So Noah actually found this poem that we're gonna leave with you right before we close off. And wait, do you want to read it, and do you want me to close off, or do you want?
You can close off, Jack.
Okay.
I would love to read
pushes
that.
the close off notes back to me.
Hey, you take your thing, man.
Sure. All right.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I mean, I feel like we went over a lot. This episode was less scary as it was historical and infuriating.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing that we're here to talk about. Is obviously just like every episode, and we've said this pretty much every episode we've had. We're not here to just scare you. We're here to teach. We're here to learn. We're here to explore.
I learned stuff.
Yeah, every time, and we're also here to be scared.
The devil's teat.
That should be the tagline for this episode. Actually, probably get demonetized. Oh my gosh.
The devil's teat.
Yeah.
No.
No. But, I mean, it's just a brutal, brutal situation. And, I mean, maybe this wasn't as scary as the Shadow People episode, but I think, like, as well, we're doing our job. Because we're just talking about things that are sinister.
I mean, the show is called Studies in Shadow.
Yeah, we're not here to spook in shadow. This isn't Stranger Things. Like, you know. That would have been a great name for a podcast had they not stolen it from us.
Stranger Things?
Yeah.
Gosh dang it, Netflix. Why do you got to be so gosh darn good?
But no, I mean, I've got nothing else to say. I think it's just one of those things where, I mean, just like you said with Arthur Miller, like history repeats itself. And just because we're in a more sophisticated age doesn't mean, you know, we can't have these things that happen. Because, I mean, we had the Bill of Rights and we had the Fifth Amendment, or the Fifth, plead the Fifth, you know, when the Red Scare was happening.
Yeah.
And it still didn't help those people. And I don't know to the extent of what happened during the Red Scare, during the Cold War and things like that with the scare of communism. But, I mean, if it happened in Salem, if it happened here in America recently, it can happen again. If people just get scared enough and there's enough collective belief in something.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like you said, hysteria and a lot of drugs. I mean, today's world, there's a lot of drugs around.
So, let's see. Hysteria, drugs. I can see this happening in Salem, Oregon.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
I can make that joke. I lived on the West Coast collectively for 10 years.
But yeah, I mean, I've got nothing else I got to say.
All right, well then read your poem, man.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry. I'm encouraging you.
This poem is called The Pains of the Witch Trials. It's a really good one. Well, it's sad, actually. She'd stroll through the village, eyes fixed on the ground, when greeted this girl, scarcely uttered a sound. Since her parents' death a few years back, she's lived on her own in no more than a shack. Her hair is red as the fires of hell. In the thoughts of men her innocence fell. They'd follow her in the light of day, besought by her peculiar way. They'd leave their wives in the dark of night to spy as she danced beneath the moonlight. One woman swore by God that she witnessed her writing a book of magic so wicked. No wonder her husband had such foolish notions, possessed by this witch and all her potions. When questioned this girl, she could not tell what powers she had, if not by spell, could take hold of a man, lead him into temptation, if not by witchcraft or some incantation. Her persuasion rooted in evil they deemed, her protest heard by the way of her screams. When they put her inside that old metal pot, with which the will of the devil himself she fought, it was said her fate would be redeemed if her body stayed below the surface, named pure again in the eyes of God by those who stood to bear witness. Fully submerged, she struggled for air, sinking the angel with fire for hair. The Bibles in hand they gathered around, together they shouted while watching her drown. Redemption they granted, her sins pronounced clean, by the men who condemned her to death at 16.
Chills. And who is that by?
Christiane Martin.
Awesome. Thank you, Christiane Martin, for that lovely poem. Well, this was a great episode. If you enjoy this podcast, we would very much appreciate it if you would share with your friends on Facebook, Twitter. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and SoundCloud. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Username, Studies in Shadow. For all inquiries and requests, you can reach us at studiesinShadow@gmail.com. Music composed and produced by Jack Rogers and Matthew Gonzalez. This has been Studies in Shadow. Thank you for listening, and be safe.